The stars looked different now. Commander Jack Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, the horizon's edge, and watched the emergency message play across every screen. His hands gripped the metal railing in front of him. The news was bad. Very bad. The Galactic Council had made their decision. 7 alien races, each older and more powerful than humanity, had voted. The vote was clear. The Krell people would die. All of them. Every single one. The Krell were a peaceful race. They lived in the deep oceans of their blue planet Aquarius Prime. Their bodies were soft and moved through water like dancers. Their skin glowed with soft lights in the darkness of their world. They had never hurt anyone. They had never built weapons. They had never even left their planet to explore space. But the Zerath Empire said the Krell were dangerous. The Zerath were the strongest race in the galaxy. They ruled 12 star systems. Their ships were like dark crystals floating through space, beautiful and deadly. The Zerath leader, Jextar, spoke in a voice that sounded like breaking glass. The Krell release spores into the water. These tiny particles float through space and land on other worlds. The Zerath said these spores would destroy everything. They showed calculations and predictions. The spores would spread to every ocean planet in the galaxy within 800 years. Every world with water would be contaminated. The galaxy would die. Lieutenant Amy Chen stood next to Jack. She was young, only 25 years old, but she was smart and brave. Her face was pale as she watched the broadcast. "This is murder," she whispered. "They are going to kill 10 million people." Jack said nothing. He had been in space for 15 years. He had seen many things. He had seen aliens who looked like insects. He had seen worlds made of gas. He had seen stars being born. But he had never seen anything like this. Humanity was new to the Galactic Council. Earth had joined only 50 years ago. The older races looked at humans like children. They smiled at human ideas. They nodded politely when humans spoke, but they did not really listen. Humans were too young, too new, too simple to understand the big decisions. But humans had a vote. And humans had something else. Something the old races had forgotten about. Humans had a memory of pain. On the screen, Jextar continued speaking. His crystalline body reflected light in strange patterns. "We do not do this with hate in our hearts. We do this to survive. The Krell spores are a disease. We must cut out this disease before it spreads. This is not cruelty. This is wisdom. This is necessary." Jack felt anger rising in his chest. He turned to his communication officer. "Lieutenant Kevin Brooks, contact Earth immediately. Get me Admiral Lisa Kane." Kevin was fast. His fingers moved over the controls. Within minutes, the communication line opened. Admiral Kane appeared on the screen. She was an older woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had fought in 3 wars. She knew what death looked like. "Commander Morrison, I know why you are calling. We have seen the vote. Earth is preparing our response now. What will we do?" Jack asked. Admiral Kane looked tired, but her voice was strong. "We will vote no, and we will offer them shelter." The bridge went silent. Every member of Jack's crew stared at the screen. Amy covered her mouth with her hand. Kevin stopped working and looked up. "Shelter?" Jack repeated. "On Earth? Yes, we cannot save all of them, but we can save some. We will send every ship we can spare. You will go to Aquarius Prime. You will bring back as many Krell as your ship can carry." Jack felt his heart beating faster. This was dangerous. This was possibly stupid. The Zerath would be angry. The other races would be angry. Earth could lose everything, but it was also right. "Yes, Admiral, we will go." 3 hours later, Earth made their announcement to the galaxy. Admiral Kane spoke for all of humanity. Her message was simple and clear. Humanity votes no. We will not participate in this extermination. We do not believe the Krell are a threat. We believe they deserve a chance to live. Earth offers sanctuary to any Krell who can reach us. The response was immediate and loud. The Zerath were furious. Jextar sent a message directly to Earth. "You are children playing with fire. You do not understand what you are doing. We will remove Earth from the Council. You will be alone." The Vorlex Collective, an ancient race of energy beings, called humans naive and foolish. The Kryn, who looked like giant insects, said Earth would be quarantined. No trade, no contact, no help, but some voices were different. Some voices were quiet but interested. A few races sent private messages to Earth. They did not agree with humanity publicly. They were too afraid, but they watched. They wondered. Maybe the young race was not so foolish after all. Jack Morrison received his orders that night. The Horizon's Edge would be part of a fleet of 12 Earthships. They would travel to Aquarius Prime. They would evacuate as many Krell as possible before the Zerath Armada arrived. The crew gathered in the briefing room. Jack looked at their faces. They were scared. They were worried. But they were also determined. "I will not lie to you," Jack said. "This mission is dangerous. The Zerath might attack us. Other races might attack us. When we return to Earth, we might find ourselves enemies of the galaxy. But 10 million people are about to die, not because they did anything wrong, not because they are evil, but because others are afraid of them." He paused and looked at each person. "Humanity has done terrible things in our history. We have killed each other over skin color, over religion, over land, over fear. We have committed genocides. We have stood by and watched others die. But we learned from those mistakes. We carry those scars, and because of that pain, we know what we must do now." Amy stood up. "When do we leave?" Jack smiled for the first time that day. "Now. We leave now." The Horizon's Edge turned away from Earth. Its engines glowed bright blue as it accelerated. Behind it, 11 other ships followed. They were not warships. They were exploration vessels, cargo ships, and passenger transports. They were not built for battle. They were built for discovery and trade. But today they would be rescue ships. The journey to Aquarius Prime would take 4 days at maximum speed. The Zerath had given the galaxy 1 week before they would begin their bombardment. That meant the humans had 3 days to evacuate, as many Krell as possible. 3 days to save 10,000 lives from 10 million. 3 days to prove that mercy was stronger than fear. Jack stood on the bridge and watched the stars stretch into lines. As the ship jumped to faster than light speed, somewhere ahead, in a solar system he had never visited, an entire civilization waited to die. But not all of them. Not if humanity had anything to say about it. Aquarius Prime appeared on the view screen like a perfect blue marble. The planet was almost entirely covered in water. Only a few small islands broke the surface. But under those endless oceans, an entire civilization lived and breathed. Jack Morrison felt his chest tighten as they approached. Somewhere down there, 10 million Krell were preparing to die. They knew what was coming. The Zerath had broadcast their intention clearly. In 72 hours, their world would burn. The Horizon's Edge was not built for evacuation. It was an exploration ship. It had a crew of 47 people. In an emergency, it could carry maybe 200 passengers. But those passengers would be cramped, uncomfortable, and barely surviving. The largest ship in the fleet was the Guardian. Captain Susan Blake commanded it. She was a tough woman with short black hair and a scar across her left cheek. Her ship was a transport vessel, designed to carry cargo and passengers between colonies. It could hold 2,000 people if they packed them in tight. Susan's face appeared on Jack's screen. "The Zerath are monitoring us. They have given us exactly 72 hours. After that, they will begin bombardment whether we are finished or not. How many can we save?" Jack asked. Susan looked down at her data pad. Her expression was grim. "Maybe 10,000. If everything goes perfectly. If nobody panics. If all our systems hold. 10,000 out of 10 million. 1 person saved for every 1,000 left behind." Jack closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, Amy was standing next to him. "The Krell government is hailing us," she said quietly. "Put them through." The screen changed. A Krell appeared. His name was Silith, and he was young for his species, only 30 years old. He had learned human languages by studying Earth broadcasts. His skin glowed with patterns of blue and green light. When he spoke, a translation device clipped to his body turned his words into English. "Commander Morrison, we thank you for coming. Your people are the only ones who answered our call for help." Jack felt shame wash over him. The Krell had sent distress signals to every race in the galaxy. Only humans came. "We wish we could do more," Jack said. "We can only save about 10,000 of your people." Silith's lights flickered in a pattern that the translation device said meant sadness. 10,000 is more than 0. But how do we choose? How do we decide who lives and who dies? That was the question that kept Jack awake at night. How do you choose? Do you take the young? Do you take the smart? Do you take families together? Or separate them to save more individuals? Amy spoke up. "Lottery. A random selection. It is the only fair way." Silith was quiet for a long moment. "You are right. We will hold a lottery, but many will volunteer to stay behind. The old, the sick, those who wish to let the young live. The evacuation began immediately. The Krell did not have much technology for space travel. They had built a few platforms on the surface of their ocean where ships could land. Now those platforms were crowded with thousands of Krell. Jack took a shuttle down to the surface. He needed to see this with his own eyes. Amy came with him. So did Commander Danny Foster, his first officer. Danny was a big man with red hair and a kind face. The platform was chaos. Krell families pressed together. Children cried. Adults tried to stay calm. Their skin flashed with colors that the humans could not understand but could feel. Fear, grief, hope, desperation. Silith met them on the platform. Water dripped from his body. The Krell needed to stay wet or they would die. We have selected the first group. 10,000 names, but already thousands more are begging to trade places. Jack watched an old Krell give his lottery ticket to a young child. The elder's skin flashed a gentle yellow. Then he turned and walked back into the ocean. He would not be saved. He had chosen to die so another could live. Danny Foster turned away. His shoulders shook. He was crying. "This is wrong," he said through his tears. "All of this is wrong." Jack put a hand on his friend's shoulder. "Yes, but we will do what we can. And we will make sure the galaxy never forgets this." The loading process was difficult. The Krell could not breathe air like humans. They needed water. Every human ship had to install temporary water tanks. These tanks were cramped and cold, but they would keep the Krell alive for the journey to Earth. The Horizon's Edge took 300 Krell. They were packed into the cargo bay and hastily assembled water containers. It was not comfortable. It was barely adequate, but it was survival. Hour by hour, the human ships filled with refugees. The Guardian took 2,000. The other ships took anywhere from 100 to 500 each. Slowly, painfully, the number grew, but it was not fast enough. With 24 hours remaining, they had only loaded 7,000 Krell. They needed 3,000 more. But the systems were breaking down. One ship reported its water pumps failing. Another ship had too much weight and could not take off safely. Jack made a decision. The Horizon's Edge would take more. They would exceed safety limits. They would pack the Krell tighter. It was dangerous. It was possibly deadly. But leaving them behind was certain death. They loaded another 100 Krell, then another 50. The ship groaned under the weight. Warning alarms sounded, but they kept loading. Other captains did the same. Susan Blake pushed the Guardian to its absolute limit. She took 200 more than was safe. With 6 hours remaining, they had loaded 9,800 Krell. 200 spaces left. But on the platform, 5,000 Krell still waited. They had lottery tickets. They had been chosen. But there was no room. Silith came to Jack one final time. "You must go now. The Zerath fleet has entered the system. If you stay longer, they may fire on you as well." Jack looked at the Krell still waiting. Families holding each other. Children who would never grow up. Elders who had lived full lives but wanted just a little more time. "I am sorry," Jack said. His voice broke. "I am so sorry." Silith's skin flashed a gentle blue. "Do not apologize. You came when no one else would. You saved who you could. That is more than anyone else did. That is everything." The human fleet began to lift off. The ships rose slowly, struggling with their heavy loads. On the platform below, the remaining Krell watched them go. Some waved. Some turned away. Some simply stood still, waiting for the end. As the Horizon's Edge reached orbit, the Zerath fleet appeared. 6 massive warships, black as space itself, beautiful and terrible. They moved into position around the planet. A message came through on all channels. Jextar's voice, cold and certain. "Human vessels, you have interfered with Galactic Council business. You are hereby ordered to leave this system immediately. If you remain, you will be destroyed along with the contaminated world." Susan Blake responded for all of them. "We are leaving. But know this. The galaxy will remember what happened here, and humanity will never forget." The human ships jumped to faster than light speed. As they left, as the stars stretched into lines of light, the bombardment began. Aquarius Prime died in fire. The beautiful blue world turned orange, then red, then black. 10 million Krell died in moments. Their cities, their art, their history, everything turned to ash. But 10,000 lived. 10,000 Krell were safe in human ships, heading toward a new home. They had lost everything, but they had their lives, and they had hope, because humanity had said no. The journey home should have taken 3 weeks. It took 7. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. The Horizon's Edge was carrying 450 Krell in spaces meant for 200. The water tanks were overcrowded. The filtration systems ran constantly, struggling to keep the water clean. The ship's engines groaned with the extra weight, but the technical problems were not the worst part. The Krell were dying inside. Dr. Amy Chen spent every waking hour in the cargo bay trying to help. She was not just a lieutenant anymore. She was a healer, a counselor, a friend, but she could not heal what was broken. The Krell were suffering from what the human doctors called despair sickness. It was not a disease. It was grief so deep that it became physical. The Krell had lost their world. They had watched their families die. They had left behind everything they knew. Some Krell simply stopped eating. Their lights grew dim. They floated motionless in the water tanks. Amy tried everything: medicine, therapy, comfort. But some pain was too deep to heal. By the end of the first week, 17 Krell had died. Not from violence, not from sickness, just from sadness. Jack Morrison walked through the cargo bay every day. He sat beside the water tanks. He could not speak the Krell language well, but he tried. He told them about Earth. He described the oceans that covered most of the planet. He talked about whales and dolphins. He promised them that they would have a home. One Krell elder named Mortek spent time near the edge of his tank where Jack could sit. Mortek had been a teacher on Aquarius Prime. He had taught young Krell about history and philosophy. Through the translation device, Mortek asked Jack a question. Why did humans help us? You gain nothing. You lose respect. You make enemies. Why? Jack thought about it for a long time. Because someone should have. Because in our history, there were times when people needed help and no one came. There were times when the strong killed the weak and everyone just watched. We learned from those mistakes. We carry those scars, so now when we see injustice, we cannot look away. Mortek's skin flashed with colors. The translation device said it meant understanding. Your species has wisdom that comes from pain. That is rare. On day 10 of the journey, disaster struck. 3 Zerath warships appeared in front of the human fleet. They had been waiting, following, hunting. Now they blocked the path to Earth. Jextar's face appeared on every screen. Human vessels, you are carrying contaminated beings. The Krell spores will infect your world. You will doom your own species. Surrender the Krell to us. We will cleanse them quickly. They will not suffer. Cleanse. That was the Zerath word for kill. Admiral Lisa Kane was commanding the human fleet from the battleship Valiant. It was Earth's only real warship, and it was no match for 3 Zerath vessels. Everyone knew it. The Zerath could destroy the entire human fleet in minutes. But Lisa Kane did not surrender. Her response would be remembered across the galaxy for generations. Jextar, the human species has faced extinction many times in our history. We have survived plagues. We have survived wars. We have survived our own stupidity. But we learned something from all that pain. We learned that survival without morality is not survival at all. It is just existing, and that is not enough. She paused, then continued. You will not have these refugees. You will not cleanse them. You will not touch them. If you want them, you will have to go through every human ship in this fleet. You will have to kill all of us, and even then you will have to face Earth itself. The standoff lasted 16 hours. The Zerath ships surrounded the human fleet. Their weapons were charged. The humans could not run. They could not fight. They could only wait. Jack stood on the bridge of the Horizon's Edge. His crew was silent. Amy stood beside him, her hand on his shoulder. Danny Foster was at the weapons console, even though everyone knew their small ship weapons were useless against Zerath armor. In the cargo bay, the Krell knew what was happening. Silith had asked to speak to Jack. Commander Morrison, you should surrender us. Save yourselves. We have already lost our world. Do not lose yours because of us. Jack shook his head. No, we made a promise. We keep our promises. Hour after hour passed. The Zerath did not fire. But they did not leave either. Something was happening. Something the humans did not understand. The Zerath were debating among themselves. They had the power to destroy the humans, but something made them hesitate. Was it humanity's courage? Was it the absolute certainty in Lisa Kane's voice? Was it something else? Finally, Jextar spoke again. You are fools. The contamination will spread to your world. Your oceans will be infected, and when that happens, do not call for help. The Galactic Council will not answer. Admiral Kane responded calmly. Then we will deal with it ourselves. Together with the Krell. That is what real civilizations do. They face problems together. They do not kill the innocent out of fear. The Zereth ships turned and jumped away. They left without another word. The human fleet erupted in cheers. On the horizon's edge, the crew hugged each other. Some cried with relief. Danny Foster let out a whoop of joy, but Jack did not celebrate. He knew what had just happened. Humanity had made enemies. Powerful enemies. The Zereth would not forget this. The Galactic Council would not forgive this. Earth was alone now. Susan Blake contacted Jack after the Zerath disappeared. We just bet our entire species on being right about this. We bet everything on mercy being stronger than fear. Jack looked at the stars ahead. Earth was still 2 weeks away. I know. But Susan, answer me this. Would you rather be wrong about mercy or right about murder? Susan was quiet for a moment. No, you are right. I would rather die trying to do the right thing than live knowing I did the wrong thing. The journey continued. The ships limped toward Earth, overloaded and exhausted. More Krell died along the way. By the time they reached human space, they had lost 43 refugees to despair sickness. But 9,957 Krell survived. 9,957 lives saved from certain death. In the cargo bay, Mortek spoke to Jack one more time before they reached Earth. Your species is young, but you have something the old races have lost. You remember what it means to suffer. And because you remember, you have compassion. Never lose that, Commander Morrison, even if it costs you everything. Jack looked at the old Krell teacher. I promise you we will not. Ahead, Earth appeared in the view screen. The blue and green planet looked peaceful and beautiful. Somewhere down there, 10,000 new homes were being prepared. The Krell had lost their world, but they were about to gain a new one. And humanity had proven something to the galaxy, something important, that mercy was not weakness, that compassion was not foolishness, that standing up for what was right mattered more than being powerful. The journey home was over, but the real work was just beginning. Earth orbit had never been so crowded. 12 human ships, battered and barely functional, circled the planet like wounded birds. Inside them, nearly 10,000 Krell waited nervously for their first glimpse of their new home. The media coverage was constant and loud. Every news channel showed images of the Krell. Camera crews tried to get close to the ships. Reporters shouted questions at anyone who would listen. The reaction on Earth was divided. Some people welcomed the Krell with open arms. They held signs that said, "Welcome and we stand with you." They organized donation drives. They volunteered to help build new homes, but others protested. They feared the spores. They worried about the cost of housing 10,000 refugees. They were angry that Earth had made enemies of powerful alien races. Signs saying Earth for humans and send them back appeared at rallies. President Henry Cole addressed the world from the United Earth Government headquarters. He was a tall man with gray hair and a calm, strong voice. He had been elected because people trusted him to make hard decisions. My fellow humans, I know many of you are afraid. I know many of you are angry. But I ask you to remember our history. Remember the times when we needed help and no one came. Remember the times when people fled violence and were turned away. Remember what that cost us. He paused and looked directly at the camera. We are not perfect. Our history is full of mistakes and cruelty. But today we have a choice. We can be the people who turned away refugees in their darkest hour. Or we can be the people who stood up and said no to genocide. I choose the second path, and I ask you to choose it with me. The Krell were placed in quarantine at first, not as prisoners but as a safety measure. Scientists needed to study the spores. They needed to understand if the Zereth warnings were true. Dr. Claire Watson led the research team. She was Earth's best xenobiologist, someone who studied alien life. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a mind that never stopped asking questions. For 6 weeks, her team worked day and night. They studied the Krell. They studied the spores. They ran tests on ocean water. They built computer models. They checked and rechecked everything. Commander Jack Morrison visited the research facility often. He wanted to know the truth. If the Zerath were right, if the spores really were dangerous, then Earth would have to deal with it. But he hoped, desperately hoped, that there was another answer. On day 42 of the quarantine, Claire Watson called a press conference. The whole world watched. Jack stood in the back of the room, his heart pounding. Claire stepped up to the microphone. She looked tired but excited. The Zerath were wrong. The room erupted in noise. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. Claire held up her hand for silence. The Krell spores are not a plague. They are not dangerous. They are a symbiotic organism. That means they work together with other life. They do not destroy ecosystems. They enhance them. She brought up images on the screen behind her. Yes, the spores spread, but when they land in oceans, they help life grow. They increase biodiversity. They help produce more oxygen. They make ocean worlds healthier, not sicker. The Zerath do not have oceans. They are silicon-based life forms. They never understood what the spores really do. They saw something different and called it dangerous. They committed genocide based on fear and ignorance. The revelation shocked the galaxy. Messages came in from other races, quietly at first. Some races that had voted for the extermination now questioned their decision. Some races that had stayed silent now spoke up. The Zerath refused to admit they were wrong. They insisted their calculations were correct. But many in the galaxy no longer believed them. With the quarantine ended, the real work began. The Krell needed homes. Earth's government had chosen a location in the Pacific Ocean. A cluster of islands would be modified and expanded. Underwater cities would be built. The Krell would have space to live and grow. The first settlement ceremony was held on a bright sunny day. Thousands of humans gathered on boats around the new Krell settlement. The Krell swam in the clear water, their bioluminescent skin glowing with patterns of joy. Sileth spoke for the Krell people. He stood on a platform, water dripping from his body, his translation device allowing everyone to understand. We call this place Aquarius II, not to replace what we lost. Nothing can replace our home world, but to honor it, to remember it, and to honor the humans who showed us that courage means standing alone against the crowd. His lights flashed in patterns that made many humans cry, even though they did not fully understand the Krell language. On our world, we had a belief. We believed that every life was connected, that every creature mattered, that preserving life was sacred. We thought the galaxy shared this belief. We were wrong, but humanity proved that some still remember what matters. Jack Morrison stood with the other ship commanders. Lieutenant Amy Chen, now promoted to commander for her work helping the Krell, stood beside him. So did Captain Susan Blake, newly promoted to admiral, and Danny Foster, now a commander as well, Kevin Brooks, the communication officer who had first contacted Earth about the crisis, came up to Jack after the ceremony. The Galactic Council has officially condemned Earth. We have been removed from all council activities. No trade, no diplomatic relations, no access to council space. We are isolated now. Jack looked out at the Krell swimming in their new home. Children played in the waves. Elders floated peacefully. Families stayed close together, beginning to heal from their trauma. Maybe isolation is not the worst thing that could happen to us. We have the Krell now. We are learning from each other. And I am willing to bet we are not the only species the Council has failed. Others are watching us. Others are wondering if maybe there is a different way. Over the following months, the Krell began to integrate into Earth society. It was not always easy. There were cultural misunderstandings. There were technical challenges. Some humans remained suspicious or hostile, but slowly connections formed. Krell engineers worked with human engineers. Their approaches to problems were different, and together they found new solutions. Krell knowledge of ocean ecosystems helped restore dying coral reefs. Human technology helped the Krell build better cities. Children from both species learned together. Young humans studied Krell art and philosophy. Young Krell learned human languages and history. Friendships formed. Mortek, the old Krell teacher, started a school in Aquarius II. He taught Krell children about their lost homeworld, making sure they never forgot where they came from. But he also taught them about Earth, about the humans who had saved them. One day, Jack visited the school. Mortek showed him a class of young Krell learning human history. They need to understand both worlds now. They are Krell, but they are also something new. They are the first generation to grow up between two species. They will build bridges we cannot even imagine. Jack watched the young Krell students, their lights flashing as they learned. He thought about everything that had happened. The fear, the death, The loss, but also the courage, the compassion, the hope. "We did the right thing," he said quietly. Mortec's lights flashed in agreement. "Yes, and the galaxy will remember. Not today, perhaps, not tomorrow, but someday, they will look back and see this moment as the time when one young species reminded the old ones what civilization really means." Outside, in the clear blue water, the Krell swam freely. They had a future. They had hope. They had survived, because humanity had said no to genocide, because one species had chosen mercy over fear, and that made all the difference. 2 years had passed since the evacuation. The Krell settlement of Aquarius II had grown. What started as temporary shelters had become a thriving community. Underwater cities glowed beneath the Pacific Ocean. Krell children swam through schools of earthfish. The two species were learning to live together, but Earth remained isolated from the galaxy. The Galactic Council refused all contact. Trade routes were closed. Diplomatic channels were silent. Humanity stood alone among the stars. Captain Jack Morrison, promoted from commander after the successful mission, sat in his quarters on the horizon's edge. The ship had been refitted and upgraded. It was ready for its next mission. But where could they go when the galaxy had turned its back on them? A message came through on his private channel. It was marked as classified and encrypted. Jack frowned. Who would send him a secret message? He opened it. A face appeared on his screen. It was not human. It was not Krell either. It was a feline face covered in golden fur with large green eyes and pointed ears. "Captain Morrison, my name is Kira Vex. I represent the Trell people. We have been watching Earth with great interest. The Trell." Jack had heard of them. They were a species that had left the Galactic Council decades ago. Something about disagreements over Council policies. They lived in systems far from Council space. "What can I do for you, Ambassador Vex?" Kira's whiskers twitched, which Jack later learned meant she was amused. "You have done something remarkable, Captain. You stood against the entire galaxy to save innocent lives. That kind of courage is rare, especially among species as young as yours. We did what was right." "Yes. And you paid a price for it. Earth is isolated. The Council is turned away. But you are not as alone as you think. There are others like us, others who questioned the Council and paid for it, others who believe that power should not come at the cost of morality." Jack leaned forward. This was interesting. "What are you proposing?" "A meeting. On neutral ground. There are 7 species, including the Trell and now humans and Krell, who share similar values. We believe it is time to form something new. An alliance based not on power or territory, but on principles." Jack immediately contacted Earth. Admiral Lisa Kane and President Henry Cole reviewed the proposal. The risk was obvious. This could be a trap, or it could be manipulation. But it could also be an opportunity. Admiral Susan Blake was brought into the discussion. So was Commander Amy Chen, who had become Earth's main liaison with the Krell. Dr. Claire Watson joined to provide scientific perspective. They debated for hours. Finally, President Cole made the decision. "We will attend the meeting, but we go carefully, and we bring both human and Krell representatives. If this alliance is real, the Krell deserve a voice in it." 3 weeks later, a small fleet arrived at the meeting location. It was a space station in neutral territory, far from both Council space and any major civilization. The station was old but functional, maintained by automated systems. Jack arrived with a small delegation. Amy Chen came with him. So did Silith, representing the Krell. Susan Blake commanded the security escort. Inside the station, they met the others. The Trell, led by Ambassador Kira Vex. The Pelthera, a species of plant-based beings who communicated through color changes. The Nomads, a spacefaring species who lived entirely on ships. The Quietus, a mysterious species that rarely spoke but listened to everything, and others. Each one had a story. Each one had questioned the Galactic Council. Each one had been punished for it in some way. The meeting lasted 3 days. They shared their histories. They discussed their values. They debated what kind of alliance they could build. Claire Watson, attending remotely from Earth, presented the scientific case. The Galactic Council operates on a principle of fear. They eliminate threats before understanding them. They destroy what they do not comprehend. But real progress comes from embracing diversity, from studying the unknown, not destroying it. Every species has something unique to offer. When we work together, when we learn from each other, we all become stronger. Amy Chen spoke about the human perspective. For humans, this is not about politics or strategy. It is about looking at ourselves in the mirror. We have a dark history. We have committed terrible acts against each other. We carry those scars. But we learned from them. We learned that silence in the face of injustice makes you part of the injustice. We learned that you have to stand up even when it costs you everything. Silith spoke for the Krell. My people were condemned to death by fear and ignorance. The Galactic Council did not investigate. They did not question. They simply voted to eliminate us. Only one species, humanity, stood against that decision. Only one species was willing to face consequences to save strangers. That is the foundation of real civilization. Not power, not technology, but the willingness to protect those who cannot protect themselves. At the end of 3 days, they had created something new. They called it the Free Worlds Coalition. It was not a government. It was not an empire. It was an agreement, a promise, a shared set of values. The declaration was simple. Each species signed it or marked it in their own way. We will not participate in genocide or extermination. We will not remain silent when the powerful prey upon the weak. We will offer sanctuary to those who need it. We will seek understanding before judgment. We will face our fears instead of destroying what frightens us. We will build a different kind of civilization. When Jack returned to Earth, he met with President Cole and Admiral Kane. This changes everything, Cole said. We are not alone anymore. We have allies now. More than allies, Jack replied. We have friends. Real friends. Species who share our values. Kane looked worried, though. The Galactic Council will not like this. When they discover we have formed a coalition, they may see it as a threat. Let them see it as a threat, Cole said firmly. We are not attacking anyone. We are not invading anyone. We are simply saying that there is another way to exist in this galaxy. A way based on principles, not fear. The first official summit of the Free Worlds Coalition was held on Earth 6 months later. Representatives from all 7 founding species came to the planet. It was a historic moment. The summit took place partly on land and partly underwater, so both humans and Krell could participate fully. Technology allowed all species to communicate clearly. At the opening ceremony, each species spoke about why they had joined. Ambassador Kira Vex of the Trell spoke last. For too long, the galaxy has been ruled by the powerful, those with the biggest ships. Those with the oldest civilizations, those with the most resources. But power without justice is just tyranny with a different name. Today we say enough. Today we show the galaxy that there is another path. We do not seek to overthrow the Council. We do not seek war. We simply refuse to participate in their injustices, and we offer sanctuary to anyone who shares our values. The summit concluded with a joint message sent to the Galactic Council. It was direct and clear. You may have power, but we have principles. You may have tradition, but tradition that demands cruelty must be changed. We are the Free Worlds Coalition. We stand for a different galaxy. One where the strong protect the weak. One where differences are celebrated, not eliminated. One where mercy is strength, not weakness. We invite any who share these values to join us. And to those who oppose us, we say this: we will not attack you, but we will never again stand aside while you commit atrocities. The age of silent complicity is over. The response from the Galactic Council was cold and dismissive. They called the coalition naive children playing at politics. They predicted it would collapse within a year. But privately, some council members were worried, because the coalition was growing. Other species, ones who had remained silent during the Krell genocide, were now watching. Some were asking questions. Some were reconsidering their positions. The galaxy was changing, slowly, quietly, but definitely, and it had all started with one human ship commander who had looked at a condemned species and said no, not on our watch. 5 years after the evacuation, Captain Jack Morrison stood on the observation deck of the Horizon's Edge. Below him, Earth turned slowly in the darkness of space. But it was not just Earth anymore. It was the heart of something bigger. The Free Worlds Coalition had grown. What started with 7 species now included 12. More joined every year. Some were small civilizations. Some were single colonies that had broken away from the Galactic Council. Some were entire species that had been marginalized or ignored. They came because they had heard the story. They came because they believed in the principles. They came because they wanted to be part of something different. Silith joined Jack on the observation deck. The young Krell had grown into a confident leader. He now served as one of the Coalition's main diplomats, traveling between worlds, sharing the message of the free worlds. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if your species had voted differently?" Silith asked. His translation device had improved over the years. Now it could capture the emotional nuances of his speech. Jack thought about it. "I think about it often. If we had stayed silent, if we had voted with the Council, we would still have our place in galactic society. We would have trade and alliances. We would be comfortable and safe, but we would have lost something more important than comfort. We would have lost our soul, and 10,000 Krell would be dead." Silith's skin glowed with patterns that meant deep agreement. "The Coalition has received another request. A species called the Meridian. They live in a system near Council space. The Council wants to relocate them, because their planet has resources the Council needs. The Meridian have nowhere else to go." Jack sighed. This was not the first time. It would not be the last. The Galactic Council continued to make decisions based on power and profit, and the Free Worlds Coalition continued to offer alternatives. "Can we help them?" "The Trell have offered to share one of their colony worlds, and several Coalition species have volunteered ships to help with relocation. If the Meridian choose to leave, we can get them out safely." This was what the Coalition did now. They offered choices. They offered sanctuary. They provided alternatives to the Council's often harsh decisions. Admiral Susan Blake had retired from active service but now led the Coalition's Refugee Assistance Program. Commander Amy Chen directed the Coalition's medical and psychological support services. Danny Foster commanded a fleet of ships dedicated to emergency evacuations. The humans who had saved the Krell had become leaders in a movement that spanned dozens of worlds. But there were challenges. The Galactic Council saw the Coalition as a threat. There had been incidents. Council ships sometimes blocked Coalition vessels. Trade became difficult. There were accusations and counter-accusations. Some in the Coalition wanted to respond with force. They argued that they needed military strength to protect themselves. But others, including Jack, argued for a different path. At a Coalition summit, the debate became heated. A representative from the Nomads spoke passionately. "The Council respects only power. If we remain weak, they will destroy us eventually. We must build a military. We must be able to defend ourselves." But Mortek, the old Krell teacher, now serving as an elder advisor to the Coalition, disagreed. "If we become what they are, if we build our strength on fear and weapons, then we have lost. The Coalition exists because we chose a different path. We chose mercy. We chose compassion. Yes, we should defend ourselves. But we should never become aggressors. The moment we attack first, we become no different from the Council." The Coalition voted. They would maintain defensive capabilities. They would protect their people and their borders. But they would not build an offensive military. They would not strike first. They would remain true to their founding principles. It was a difficult decision. Some species left the Coalition over it, but most stayed. They believed in the vision. They believed that there had to be a better way. Back on Earth, the Krell settlement had become a true city. Aquarius II was home to 15,000 Krell now. Children who had been born there had never seen the original homeworld. They were a new generation, growing up between two worlds, two cultures. Human and Krell scientists worked together on projects that benefited both species. Krell biotechnology combined with human engineering created new solutions. Dying oceans were restored. New medicines were developed. The partnership was producing real results. Claire Watson, now head of the Coalition's Scientific Council, presented a report at the annual summit. The Krell spores have spread to 17 planets within Coalition space. Every single one has shown improvements in ocean health. Biodiversity is up. Oxygen production is up. The Zerath were completely wrong. The spores are not a plague. They are a gift. She paused and looked at the assembled representatives. The Council committed genocide based on fear and incomplete data. They refused to investigate. They refused to question. And because of that, 10 million Krell died. We must never forget that. We must never let fear drive our decisions. Years passed. The Coalition continued to grow, slowly but steadily. They faced many challenges. There were conflicts with Council species. There were internal disagreements. There were moments when it seemed like the whole thing might fall apart, but they persisted. Because the alternative was going back to a galaxy where might made right, where the powerful could destroy the weak without consequence, where fear was more important than justice. On the 10th anniversary of the Krell evacuation, a massive celebration was held on Earth. Representatives from all coalition worlds attended. It was part memorial, part celebration, part rededication to the principles that had brought them together. Jack Morrison, now an admiral and one of the coalition's senior leaders, gave a speech. He was older now, with gray in his hair, but his voice was still strong. 10 years ago, humanity faced a choice. We could stay safe and comfortable by staying silent. Or we could risk everything to do what was right. We chose to act. We chose mercy over fear. We chose compassion over power. He looked at Silith, standing beside him. We saved 10,000 Krell. But in doing so, we started something bigger. We reminded the galaxy that there is another way. That civilization is not about who has the biggest ships or the most advanced weapons. It is about how we treat those who are vulnerable. It is about standing up when everyone else sits down. It is about being worthy of the stars we reach for. Silith spoke next. His voice carried across the assembled crowd. In the Krell language, there is a word, Keshtaru. It means the one who carries light into darkness. For my people, humanity will always be our Keshtaru. You came when no one else would. You stood when everyone else sat. You chose mercy when others chose murder. His lights flickered in beautiful patterns, but now all of us in the coalition are Keshtaru. We all carry that light, and we will continue to carry it. For as long as the stars shine, for as long as there are those who need shelter, for as long as injustice exists in this galaxy. The celebration lasted 3 days. There was music from a dozen worlds, food from countless cultures, stories shared in multiple languages. It was a testament to what was possible when different species chose to work together. On the final night, Jack stood alone on a beach near Aquarius II. The Krell city glowed beneath the waves. Above him, stars stretched across the sky. Somewhere out there, the Galactic Council continued to rule through power and fear. But also out there, the Free Worlds Coalition was growing, offering an alternative, proving that another way was possible. Amy Chen found him there. She had become one of his closest friends over the years. "Do you think we made a difference?" she asked. Jack thought about the question. He thought about the 10,000 Krell who were alive because humanity had said no. He thought about the coalition that had grown from that single act of defiance. He thought about all the refugees who had found shelter, all the species who had found a voice. Yes, we made a difference. Maybe not as big as we hoped. Maybe not as fast as we wanted. But we proved something important. We proved that you do not have to be the strongest or the oldest or the most advanced to be right. You just have to care. You just have to stand up. You just have to refuse to be silent. He smiled. And sometimes that is enough. Beneath the waves, Krell children played in the bioluminescent gardens. Above the water, human children watched the stars. 2 species, once strangers, now family. All because one group of humans had looked at a condemned species and said the most powerful word in any language. No. No to genocide. No to fear. No to injustice, and yes to something better. Yes to mercy. Yes to compassion. Yes to the belief that being civilized meant more than having advanced technology. It meant protecting those who could not protect themselves. It meant standing up for what was right even when it cost everything. The galaxy was vast. It was ancient. It was often cruel. But somewhere in that vast darkness a light was growing. A coalition of worlds that refused to accept that might made right. That refused to stay silent in the face of injustice. That believed, truly believed, that there was a better way. And it had all started with 10,000 refugees and the humans who refused to let them die. That was the most human thing of all. Not the technology, not the weapons, not the ships or the cities or the science. The most human thing was looking at someone,